Welcome to Simply Thriving in the North with your hosts, Auroara Leigh and Brent Goerz. We are here with Dawna Gould today talking about story and trauma and resilience and bravery, awakening, the depths of healing, and men's mental health. We are so glad that you're here to join us. Welcome. It's so good to be together.
Thank you. As you said, I'm Dawna Gould, and thank you for allowing me to be here and to share my story. And it's just great.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. I'm Brent. We were just kind of getting to know each other a little bit, and it's kind of really neat hearing a little bit of your story, and I'm really looking forward to kind of this interview.
Yeah.
And because I've got a mixed background in the sense of being in the field and also being in mental health myself and being a man, I'm very interested in your topic today.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, so a little about me, a little backstory before we jump into where my passion is I came from India. I was adopted from India into Canada when I was just 17 months old, into a very religious upbringing family, and they were very white, and by white I mean I'm the imported chocolate of the family. And so I was in an orphanage over there. So from day one I've always been, now that I look back, I've always been one to blaze my own path, my own trail. So I don't know who my birth family is, and that's okay, but for a lot of years I struggled with that, right? Like, that's a huge part of my identity. And so growing up, I was in a very religious home, very, very religious, and experienced a lot of trauma growing up of, sexual abuse and, just being beaten and just verbally abused a lot. And I couldn't understand it growing up, and I always took it on me as I'm the dark one, right? So I took it as I was the emotional punching bag for the rest of the family, because my adopted parents had lost a child, and so I was a replacement child. I didn't understand the full aspects of that till later on.
Right.
So at the time, I couldn't understand why I was getting on all the time. So anyway, I went to private schools, and I was sent away when I was like 14 to go to these boarding academies. And I loved it because then I was away from, but then there I got a different kind. I got the religious trauma of, you got to do things this, and so I was just like floundering as to who am I, where do I belong? I just don't belong anywhere, right? And moving forward, and then that escalated into my adult life, right? Finally graduated, and in a school that I liked. Finally, I told them, I said, I'm not going to make it here. Fast forward, I as an adult, I got married, and I have 3 kids, and a couple of relationships failed, and I just trauma bonded with a lot of my relationships, and I couldn't figure out why. So my husband I have now, currently, we get along. But we were hit with an event in 2019, and this is where I stepped into finally, it was like the universe was like, okay, enough. It's time for you to use what I've given you, but you have to heal yourself. So we went through that whole traumatic event, and we had to live separately for a while. And that's when I really dove in. I was just like, okay, I am now, having to do everything on my own, raise my 2, younger boys. Well, they're not young anymore, but So I really had to hone in and become self-resilient and be like, this is what I want to do. I've always wanted to help, people in general, just always help. So then I stepped into getting my Reiki Masters. I did that, and then other self-courses for inner healing, and the more I learned and the more knowledge I gained, the more healing came. And as I healed more, then more my gifts came apparent to me. So, I'm also a spiritual medium, and I connect and I can channel. All of that stuff I knew I had when I was younger, but it was just so frowned upon, right? Now it's my gift to be able to help. And being in such a highly male-dominant industries, because I've worked in pipelines, I've worked in the mills, I've worked in logging industries, growing up, raised around logging. And my husband, he's a heavy-duty mechanic. So now, just a couple years ago, I'm working where I currently work. I'm seeing just how much we say there is support for men's mental health, but we don't have a lot of well-being. Like, I feel like there's this label for easy just to smack out there of mental health, take care of your mental, which is valid and fair, and I absolutely support that. I feel my small part in the world is, how do we help these men think that coming into yourself and healing your well-being, that it's a cool thing. So this is where I'm leading to for my contribution of helping healing the collective a little bit, one person at a time, is helping men heal, and that is cool.
So do you feel like the gift that you offer is kind of making those connections just casually with people, and then just kind of see how things evolve, and kind of feeling that energy between the two of you, and kind of looking at your own intuition? Is that kind of what happens with regards to those connections?
Yes, that's a great question, and it is how I am able to connect with the men, is because I'm able to sense something's going on that's a little deeper, because most men I'll say, hey, how are you? They'll be like, they'll
fine.
usually say fine, right? And I'll be like, oh no.
That's,
Like, really?
You don't let them.
I said, are you really fine?
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, I'm fine. I'm like, so then I'll be like, well, so how's work life? And they'll usually rattle off, and then after a few minutes, then they start, you can feel them shift of, this person's not here to, it's more, they're asking more than just what I'm surface level conversation.
And you're really interested in their answers, as opposed to just getting the fine and moving on, talking about the weather, talking about very superficial things.
Exactly. And talking about the weather and all that kind of stuff is all great if it's just somebody that you're meeting for the first time.
Yeah.
However, there's just this undenying energetic connection that they'll feel. They can't explain it, and sometimes I can't even, because it's just like, it just happens, right? And then the next thing they're just sharing to their comfortability.
Right.
So I'm curious, why men? Like, for you, why is it men that you like to work with in particular?
Because I feel like there is so much support. Like, I'm not opposed to working with women, by all means. I will work with everybody, young, old, the whole barrage. Specifically men, because there is such a narrow margin for them where they feel like they can be safe and heard. And they need women and they need men to help advocate that they matter too. And there is such a big, I feel like from a woman's perspective, there's a lot more availability from women. However, for men, there's still the availability, but it's not as easily accessible. One is because timing. Sometimes they prefer to go to see somebody, say from the time of 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. at night, in that range. Well, what counseling office, what therapy, what offices are open from 6 to 10 that they can go and do that? What person's going to answer the phone if they're at work and they've just been told, you know, you've lost your job, you've been here 15 years. They don't want to take that home. But what if we had a line where they could say, hey, you're my mentor. Do you have 8 minutes that I can call and debrief before I go home? Sometimes it might be just that 8 minutes they need to save them. So, men, it's teaching them how to tune into their feelings and their emotions, that it's okay to feel, it's safe to feel. And trauma, generational trauma, affects that hugely. It is the core of every being in each and every one of us. Each one of us sitting here has had our own traumas, and this is why we're all sitting here, is because we've worked through them, and we're here to help other people now, because we've been through it. We see that other people can too, and this is how we heal the men, one person at a time.
I'm really curious about kind of what you do when you need to recharge your batteries, because, you know, kind of being in these challenging environments, you know, having people reach out and make connections with you. I'm curious, right? Because, you know, as caregivers, as helpers, sometimes we don't recognize our own needs.
Yes, that's a very good point. I can't say I'm really diligent. I've gotten better. And I have to say it's boundaries. You have to, even though we're giving and we're caring, I have to know where my boundary is I know you're going through a really hard moment right now, but I'm just not bandwidth right now to deal with it. But if you give me, you know, I can reach out with you tomorrow at such and such a time, and I will be able to be fully present for you.
Right.
I do a lot of my own, like exercising. I do a lot of soaking in my tub because I just love water.
Yeah.
So, and I have a pond out in so I'll just go and ground, do a lot of grounding just to center myself. And, you know, I do a lot of, you know, praying too. Just that's my own thing. And that really helps me be able to stay centered and in aligned. But yeah, that's what I do. Hiking too, camping.
Was there a pivotal point where you were deciding that it was men's mental health that you wanted to focus on? And can you describe that a little bit, when that came like full scope in your clarity?
Oh, there's so many little seeds along my journey that were planted that made me just think, hey, I could do something about, but at that time in myself, I didn't feel I was qualified to do that because I was still doing my own. I'd have to say I was like 2 years ago, solidly 2 years ago, you know, working in the different industries and really seeing just how men deal with stuff. And even where I work now, it's more apparent to me that I'm on the right path of helping men, because it's my gift to do that. So my pivotal point would be, I'd have to say, a solid 2 years ago, when I knew that this is where I want to be, because I can connect to each and every person. I just feel more drawn to the male industry, especially all all of them, because it's just such a cry of silence that goes unnoticed.
What do you think is challenging with regards to kind of the working men kind of in the industry that you've come into contact with in the north here? Because, you know, we have a large population of men who don't have the same connections with their families because they're away, kind of working away from their families. You know, I'm just curious about kind of that piece of, you know, that population.
Yeah, because living up north, a lot of the men, they work away and just they don't have, like you said, the accessibility. So there's Zoom meetings, and making it again back to opening up my hours and availability to when it works for them, rather than having such a rigid schedule of these are only my hours, of what works for you. And I'm finding that slowly they'll, like I said, I'm still new and upcoming. It still hasn't launched. So I'm just taking in, observing and hearing and learning and fixing it to how it can create to work for them. And the majority of feedback I've been hearing from men is they just want it to be later times.
Right.
Or during their lunch break or their 15-minute break. So being able to have a coach or a mentor, somebody who can do that, they would be more likely to reach out than if it's a 9 to 5.
You talked earlier on with this concept of men being able to describe what their needs are. Like, I need to kind of connect with somebody for 8 minutes, you know, and be very specific. How do you teach them that language?
That's a good question, because like I said again, I'm just still up new and coming into launching myself more publicly, because I've just been doing it just low ground, right? I'll get back to you on that.
Well, it sounds like it's a work in progress.
Yes, it is.
Right? And so as you're developing kind of the emotional IQ of the men that you're working with, you know, kind of expanding from the I'm fine and kind of creating that openness to expand into other emotions. And then it's, you know, kind of what I need is this.
Yeah.
Right? It's an interesting formula. You know, I feel in this situation what I need is this.
Right.
And once kind of men are given that opportunity, and I think you said it very clearly before with regards to safety, right? Developing that relationship where there's safety.
Yeah.
Where they can kind of start exploring those specific questions.
Yes, because first and foremost, it's about building the trust. Can I trust you? Can I build that? Because a lot of men, too, don't trust women, you know, for various reasons. And sure, they can come and tell you what they want, tell me what they think I need to hear. But it goes deeper, again, as you know, each of you know, it goes deeper. And how do we bridge that gap from being okay to feeling my emotions? Because that's iceberg, right? I'm up here, great, but all this underneath is where I'm really at. And it's going to be interesting. I feel like I've had a couple people I've worked with, and it's they've said, well, I've just felt like, you know, when I was younger I was this and that. And so when sometimes they'll bring in a story from when they're younger, and I go, okay, so then I'll take that. So when you were younger, what did you feel? Well, I felt like nobody loved me. I did it, you know. And I'm like, that's what it is. So this situation at work that just happened, or with your partner, or with, it triggered you, and so you felt this, and they're like, oh. Like they go, oh.
Flushing it out of them, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And sometimes, because men are point A, point B, they don't like a lot of talk.
Yeah.
Some do, but also some need to see that how it can parallel a little bit. And then once they start seeing that, then they're starting able to make the connection. So yeah, that's my hope moving forward, is that I'm able to be able to use that story when they open that up.
What do you do when a man's not ready? You know, it's you just kind of, you hit that wall, and where they're not kind of prepared, or the timing's not right for them to kind of go into their experience, their story, but you know that there's something wrong.
I just hold space for them, and you just sit and visit with them. That's all you can do.
Yeah.
You just sit and hold that space, because sometimes it's just that space alone. Because if I'm wanting them to heal, and I have that energy in me, they can feel that. But if they can feel that I'm okay, that we don't have to do this, then their barrier's going to come down. Maybe
Right.
not at that session,
Yeah.
but they might go home and be like, you know what, she didn't push me, she didn't force me, she didn't make me, she just sat there and we just talked about randomness. Sometimes in that randomness, though, they might drop other little seeds.
Yeah.
Right? I'm not a cookie cutter fit, because each person isn't supposed to fit into a mold. You have to meet them where they're at with their own cookie cutter.
Right.
And
Right.
they get to carve out what works for them. It's me as the mentor, as the person who holds space, capability to help guide them. They have to do the work. It's not me. I'm just there to hold it for them, guide them, and then they'll find their way slowly. And that's a lot of times what each and every one of us needs, but men need that. They don't like to think they need that, but holding that space for them, just be like, hey, that's cool. You don't want to, that's fine.
Right.
I'll still be here next week at this time.
Right.
Right? I'm not going to be like, well, we're not getting anywhere.
Yeah.
Because I might go through 10 sessions of I'm not getting anywhere, and the 11th one will be,
Right.
right? So,
You know, it really speaks to your lived experience and the reality of resilience, like how you've come through your own story. And you may not have that clinical background of therapy like Brent does, but when you're speaking, you have this wisdom where you just have it. And I think that really speaks to, you know, the power of lived experience, that is knowledge and experience, because knowledge plus experience is wisdom, right? And when I'm listening to you, you know, I'm hearing wisdom.
thank you. And it's true, because my own personal self, I've had many great counselors and, you know, professionals, and they just didn't get me. I had a couple that did, and it was because they lived through their stories, and those were the two that really helped me and really seeded for me, this is where I want to be, because they lived through their trauma, and now look, they're helping. And sometimes back to the men, and just in general, people, they feel more of a connection with somebody who has lived through hard shit and come back and been resilient, healed, and now they're wanting to help. There's more of a connection, because it's nothing against just books, but it's just like there's book smart, and then I always say there's book smart, and then there's lived life, right? And book smart people can have the same stories. They're just better at reading books and being able to do it from that angle. And those people connect with you probably really, really well.
Yeah.
And you're able to take them on a whole different, deeper, probably, level of connection.
Well, that's interesting, right? Because, I work with a lot of blue-collared men as well, and it's just recognizing how are they going to get resources outside of the session, right? Because the time that they spend with me is just that tiny little drop in a bucket. And then the rest of it is living their life, practicing and creating that desire of change, which I think is what you're talking about, and this idea of continuity of care, where you're helping them kind of take the first few steps, creating that safety,
Yes.
and actually recognizing it's okay to be vulnerable without using that word. Right? Because it's I sometimes talk about the F word. I won't use the F word, meaning feelings. It's different ways of getting a guy to kind of talk about what's going on for them, right? And so I may say, what's going on in your body? Or what I'm hearing from you is, tell me a little bit about your story. Or was there a time earlier on when you kind of had that experience? And then connecting the dots that way.
Right, yeah. And so we're on the same team, just different, being able to, our goal is still the same. We just have different angles of getting there.
Right.
And I find it so fascinating because it's just empowering on both levels, right? And it's not that it's levels, it's just, I just love seeing and hearing different aspects, because then I'm able to help in a different way to a little bit more.
That nurturing feminine, it's really deeply impactful without having the logical mind attached to it. And both are important. Like the wisdom that Brent brings is equally important. They're just different. So if there was one last thing that you would, reflect and tell any man that is listening, what would it be? And then we'll be done for today. We could talk forever, I feel like.
Oh, we could talk forever. And the wisdom or one piece for any man that's sitting out there and is teetering on, should I know I should, but I don't want to, because what is don't let fear trump your courage. Because courage is what it takes to still fully step into living the life you deserve and are worthy of.
Thank you.
That's fantastic, and that's that idea of courage is not when you don't have fear. It's when you experience the fear and make that choice to move forward.
Yes.
Fantastic.
We just want to thank everyone for tuning in to Simply Thriving in the North. And you can find Dawna Gould's website in the description, and we will see you again.
Thank you.